Dale Evans hated and cursed him more than anyone. For decades, America looked at Dale Evans and Roy Rogers and saw the perfect Western couple. But the woman standing beside Roy was carrying grief, exhaustion, and frustrations that the cameras never showed. And the strangest part is this: the evidence doesn't really point to hatred at all. It points to something much more complicated. I think that distinction matters. Because when you hear that Dale Evans hated Roy Rogers, it's tempting to imagine a secret marriage filled with bitterness. But their real story was much messier, and, honestly, much more human. Long before Roy Rogers, Dale Evans had already learned that life could force you to grow up quickly. She was born Frances Octavia Smith in 1912, and as a teenager she became a mother. Her first husband left while she was still incredibly young, leaving her to raise her son, Tommy. Music became her escape and her livelihood. She sang on radio, worked her way toward Hollywood, and eventually became Dale Evans. But Hollywood wanted a cleaner story. Because Dale had been a teenage mother, studio executives believed her past could hurt her image. So Tommy was publicly presented as her younger brother. Imagine that. The child you had struggled to raise, the reason you worked so hard, was suddenly someone you weren't supposed to openly call your son. That experience stayed with Dale. And years later, when she married Roy Rogers, something finally changed. Roy accepted Tommy. For Dale, that must have meant more than people watching from the outside could understand. Roy had also experienced enormous loss. His first wife, Arlene, died shortly after giving birth to their son in 1946. Roy was suddenly raising children while dealing with the loss of his wife. Dale understood what it meant to carry a family through difficult circumstances. Their relationship grew from that shared understanding. In 1947, they married. And for a while, their life looked almost impossibly happy. They became one of America's most recognizable couples. They worked together. They appeared together. They raised a growing family together. Then came Robin. In 1950, Dale gave birth to her only biological child with Roy. Robin had Down syndrome and serious health problems. At a time when many families were pressured to hide children with disabilities, Dale refused to treat her daughter like something embarrassing. She loved Robin openly. And then, in 1952, Robin died before reaching her second birthday. That loss changed Dale. She later wrote Angel Unaware, turning her grief into something that helped other families understand the value of children with disabilities. But the tragedies weren't finished. Their adopted daughter Debbie died at only 12 years old in a church bus accident in 1964. This time there had been no long illness. No warning. Just a sudden loss. And I think this is where the popular story about Dale and Roy becomes misleading. Because after losing 2 children, raising a large family, maintaining a career, and living with the constant demands of Roy's career, Dale had plenty of reasons to feel exhausted. Roy was frequently busy with filming, appearances, performances, and other professional obligations. Dale was dealing with the children and the household. And according to the account in the original story, Roy could also be strict about discipline and how the children were raised. That created disagreements. But disagreement isn't hatred. Dale could love Roy and still be angry with him. She could appreciate everything he had given their family and still resent the times his career kept him away. She could admire the man America called the king of the cowboys while privately wishing her husband had been more present. Those feelings aren't contradictory. They're human. And there was another problem: the public expected Dale and Roy to be perfect. They were supposed to represent faith, family, kindness, and traditional American values. Millions of people watched them and believed they knew this couple. But they knew the television version. They didn't see every argument. They didn't see the exhaustion. They didn't see Dale carrying grief while still having to be a mother the next morning. They didn't see what happened after the cameras stopped. After Debbie's death, Dale and Roy eventually moved from their Chatsworth ranch to the Double Bar Ranch in Apple Valley, California. A new home couldn't erase the old pain. Robin was still gone. Debbie was still gone. And the responsibilities of marriage and family were still there. What changed most was Dale herself. She became more open about grief, faith, loneliness, and suffering. She no longer seemed interested in pretending that a faithful life meant an easy life. And that may be the real secret behind the claim that Dale Evans hated Roy Rogers. Maybe hatred is simply the wrong word. Their marriage lasted more than 5 decades. There was clearly love, loyalty, family, and deep attachment between them. But there was also frustration. There were disagreements. There were painful memories. And there were moments when Dale undoubtedly wished things had been different. That's what makes their story interesting to me. Not that Dale secretly hated Roy. But that behind America's picture-perfect cowboy couple were 2 imperfect people trying to survive extraordinary loss while continuing to build a life together. Dale didn't have to stop loving Roy to be angry with him. And Roy didn't have to be a villain for Dale to feel hurt. Sometimes the truth is harder, and far more believable, than the headline. Their marriage wasn't perfect. Their family wasn't perfect. But they kept going. And perhaps that is the part of Dale Evans and Roy Rogers' story that America never really saw.